All right, we are officially back on. This is Dynasty, the podcast show. I am your host, Ira Bush. It's a lot of sun out there. Y'all gotta stay hydrated, stay sunscreen. I don't change three different colors this last week sitting in the sun. So, summer's coming to an end. The fall will be here shortly. Hopefully we get a nice fall and winter this year. It was a little weird. It got cold late last year and it stayed cold for a weird amount of time, all the way up to almost March, April last year or this year. So, and that's across the country, I guess. Florida was a little weird too. So, hopefully, we get a stable, nice, safe hurricane season as well down in Florida. Um, First and foremost, it's one of these days. I don't have much to do or much to say. It's like I said, I was sweating bullets outside, so long sleeve, so my shirt looked a little dingy. Um, there's let's just put it like this. Okay, we're gonna start right with basically what we're gonna be talking about today. In politics, it's very weird. I don't like the trajectory of what's going on. It's day by day really with these people, what they want to talk about, what they want to discuss. I don't like the fact that we don't do a good job of taking care of business at hand and creating more things, more situations, or trying to distract us for what we really need to get done. And I see that happening, with this whole Epstein story, going to visit a different country to play golf. And, the main topic is what happened to you in the 1970s. And it had nothing to do with nothing political. It had everything what you doing with wasting time, partying, hanging out, stuff that doesn't matter right now. At this time, what we need to focus on is, I did see a story on Instagram where they released the federal education grants up to $5.5 billion. A lot of that has to do with community college and your K through 12 system, which would have been very hard for them to. It's very hard to explain how they was going to sponsor paying the teachers' salaries, make sure their programs that they already inputted and installed in the whole system of school. Them taking funds away, they had to release those funds back to the school boards and the authority of over all that. Whoever's over the money or the dollar for schools, they got their the main source of what they needed to get released. I'm pretty sure that all some stuff was left out, but the main part was released, and that's a good thing. Now it could have been more. I think about $5.5 billion. School is free already. The biggest thing is paying educators, refurbishing the schools every year, every 6 months. Really, when you get, you got summer break and you got Christmas break. So they usually do a nice halfway through the school year refurbishing, and and during the summer it's a little bit more, even more detailed. So hopefully everything gets situated. A lot of schools are used for summer camps as well, so they still have to work double during the summer as well. That's keeping the facilities in nice standing. I don't know. There's just calculating, all the schools in Florida. They only said $5.5 billion. I'm sure I could bet on so much money that was still under the amount that needed to be released. They just did a deal. They say, I don't know when it's gonna manifest into actual. It's looking like he's making a deal with Japan for $500 billion. So I always look at stuff like that. What was the deal about? they say it was about, transportation, of cars and goods and whatnot. But we still have to remember that the most important thing is home base. I would rather see $500 billion geared towards, technology here in America, the advancement of making sure we have the most amount of money resources to train people into being a able body in society. Having a trade, having trade centers that are so high level and so advanced that you basically get paid to be in trade school, and then you go right into a career in trade school, and this, the money get trickled into the schools, the secondary schools. I want that to be over resourced, so it won't be an issue. So I won't be looking like we're looking for a handout in the world, not United States, but in the world. So to give them $5 billion and keep the $500 million here, that's how I look at it. Even though Asia is a big country, Tokyo is probably bigger, Japan, whatever. But I want, if I'm gonna be here, I want the best. So I be looking at those stuff. They could make a deal like that with every state. $100 billion per state. How many states? How much money is that? It's a lot, but it need to start like that. $100 billion fund to each state. How about that? Start with the governor of just schooling, this, that. It doesn't have to actually be spent all at once. It just need to be the most highest graded equipment, highest graded technology, highest graded teachers being paid to teach in the new generation. It has to be literally that standard and that bar. That's what we're at right now. We should not be half-assing on paying teachers. That is a K through 12. Our K through 12 system, the teachers all should be making $100K per year. Even the kindergarten teachers. It doesn't matter when they started. It matters that they have a very important job in society that they need to get paid for. They're educators. That means their brain is being used to feed other brains. Literally, information, details, whatever you want to call it. It has to be done in a respectful manner. Like I said, you can start with, everybody having $100 billion each state to their available for education, for trade schools, and transportation, and getting people from one place to another. It's the having it make you jump through hoops just to get a pass for the bus. Literally like an all day pass. You have to literally go. Some people have to walk 3-4 miles just to pay for a pass now, because you got to go to a specific center to get a bus pass, and it's unnecessary. Then if you want to get a discount for being a college student or a student in high school, you still gotta go sometimes 10 miles just to get to the school. To get the it's not that's nothing to complain about. I'm just saying it's not easy. It's like they want you to start. They want to make it seem like we have to start from scratch and zero, when it's literally a sign off to say, here, this is yours. This is for this. This is for school. This is for this. So unless people want people to sign up for a war, doesn't need to be a war. Technology's that advanced. Nobody should want without. Everything should be available to each individual. And I'm not saying be a criminal. Being a criminal, if to chose the life of being a criminal, what they would call a criminal, because I don't know what your upbringing, I don't know where your starting point was, but everybody got choices. Everybody has situations that they will have to make choices. Either you take this route, or you take that route, or you take that route. Whatever route you chose, and that is why you get the results you get at the end of the day. I can't go back on the result on stuff that I've done, but I don't feel like I'm in a bad situation or a horrible situation. Like I said, I'm able to speak. That's one of the most important things, being able to speak in public, overcoming all the naysayers, the doubt and hate. So many people try to hide behind your downs or pitfalls. They don't even realize how bad their downs and pitfalls is compared to what I've ever done. Yours is so much horrible, and I'm at peace with myself in life. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna make a way for myself. I'm not deterred by nothing. Nothing can deter my future. The only person that can stand in my way is myself. So yeah. Well, we could go right into it. Today I'm gonna start for political purpose reasons. We're gonna talk about the executive orders that we're for that, it's for I haven't they added on to today, they added on to yesterday or three yesterday officially signed off to. So when I start talking about it, I try not to just sound like I'm blabbering. This is information that's on the internet. This is information that is signed in the White House or wherever this person's standing, or his cabinet or whatnot, whatever they do with the executive orders. They fly all the way back and then fly to another place. I guess that's what they do. But, that's what the taxpayers wanted. That's what they wanted in office. So, that's what we got to, live with. All right, let's get right to it. Executive orders. Accelerating federal permitting of data center infrastructure. Accelerating federal permitting of data center infrastructure. So I guess they're finna restructure some internally at a data center, I guess. So we're gonna read that. I guess it's another bill that they need to pay. So let's read what they're talking about. Policy and purpose. My administration has inaugurated a golden age for American manufacturing and technology dominance. We will pursue bold, large-scale industrial plans to vault the United States further into the lead on critical manufacturing processes and technologies that are essential to national security, economic prosperity, and scientific leadership. These plans include artificial intelligence data centers and infrastructure that powers them, including high voltage transmission lines and other equipment. It will be a priority of my administration to facilitate the rapid and efficient build out of this infrastructure by easing federal regulatory burdens. In addition, my administration will utilize federally owned land and research for expeditions and orderly development of data centers. This usage will be done in a manner consistent with land's intended purpose to be used in service or prosperity and security of American people. Okay. Well, with that being said, all this artificial intelligence talk and then using federal land, meaning it could be a blank flat surface owned by the government, or probably has to ties with the states as well, with clearing all that stuff up. It goes states, then it goes cities, mayors, and all that stuff get cleared up. But I guess when it's federal, they come in and do what they want when they please, as long as they, there's an understanding by our governor and senators in Florida that they're gonna go and use a facility or a piece of land to start building artificial intelligence data centers. Now I don't know, it's very broad when they say data centers. The definition they have for data center project means the facility that requires greater than 100 megawatts of new load dedicated to AI interference, training, simulation, and synthetic data generation. Now, I speak a lot about the way the government has involved and trying to control minds and neural lineage, getting that intel via, you being sleep, you being in America, you eating all this food that is cleared by the what is it, the CB, whatever the group that clears food, and the food poison people, whatever, whoever clears the food. They work hand in hand to control minds, and it's technically designed for basically like keeping you alive, and then you being deemed healthy enough for this or healthy enough for that. It's not a secret how they weaken strong people, or try to control the masses. That's what their excuse would be, controlling the masses. But they started off by weakening the strong and keeping them out of place, or chaining them up into prisons or jails. These are all routinely things that are done just based off the way the American system is born. Because if you really go into the details, when you really look into the history, the people that we have representing us, just think of a picture, everybody happy and smiling. That's what they prop themselves up. But in real life, not saying we don't have a lot of power. People are still scared of America. People are still intimidated by what the corruption that's been plagued our country. It's not as loud as most times, or we're good at sending our best talent, like our artists, music artists, linking up with people from different countries. This is the way that they keep peace. Winning, playing in the Olympics, it's a lot of ties with, shaking hands in these events, and having to understand, having a meeting with these people that have the same position in their countries, that the people that went there have the same position, because people look up to these influential people. So yeah, as I was saying about basically whatever they talk, I don't really agree with artificial intelligence. That's not something I'll bake my future on. I know how important the regular mind and brain is. It's not, y'all not are supposed to be living in our brain, trying to be futuristic, trying to deter or stop someone's existence of prosperity. They try to attack the mind first. It doesn't matter what they say or what they say out the side of their mouth. There is a whole underground background way of them trying to stay in power. Like, say I'm speaking right now. There's somebody that has artificial intelligence that is tapping into my intellectual property, if that makes sense to you. I'm not being funny about this. This is like, when it first happened, like when it came big, or when it came when I became aware of this, is not it's recent stuff. This is not, I thought it was more like they have these things, people have these things hooked into their head, and they're on an artificial wavelength. They on somebody like my wavelength because of my intelligence. If that makes sense to you, I don't know these people, but these people are fake ass government agents. That's what I call them. They fake government agents because they're artificial. They're getting fake intel. It's not their real way of thinking. They're trying to cipher something from me or other people that they deem worthy to cipher from. So this, I'm telling you, I don't know how they did it when I was younger, or in elementary or preschool or whatever, whenever they decided to go attack my mental capacity. But I it's been aware. I don't want you to think that I'm on your side. I'm not. I'm on my side. I want my real mom and dad and child and sisters to be prosperous. I'm not agreeing to nothing you have going on. The artificial person, you know what I'm saying? It ain't correlating. It's two different worlds still. You're the bot. I'm the real human being. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my thoughts on that. Let's move on to the next one. Now this is funny. This is funny. The next executive order which is signed today is it's called Saving College Sports. Now, before I read what it says, I'm just gonna go off the title, what I think that means. Okay, now I've been in prep sports, literally prep sports. First year of I talk about this all the time, so it's different reason why I'm saying it. But I started playing football, tackle football at 7 years old. Now the funniest thing is I always been athletic. I always had athletic ability. I wasn't like the greatest ever since sliced bread, but I was in the upper echelon. If I worked hard enough, I would be in that realm. If when I was little, I've never been athletic. I used to do backflips, cartwheels, ride my bike, Papa Willie, all that. Started swimming early. I didn't learn until I was like 7 or 8. So, like really learn how to swim. Somebody showed me how to swim. But I always used to get in the pool since I was a little kid. So I never been, I've been outside, talk about this all the time. So okay, long story short, and kind of make me just change the thought before I was saying. But yeah, basically I've been working. Oh, saving college sports, my bad. That's what it was about. But they used to pay players. Money used to get into the college players' hands. They had a big story on ESPN a long time ago about betting in South Florida, but that was something that was going on. That was something that was going on even in my side of Florida. And so I didn't indulge in betting or gambling. I was playing at the time. But it used to get really serious when the older people played. Me being a little child, 7, 8, 9, me watching. I got an early game. So I'm playing by 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning when I'm a little kid. The latest, they changed. It was funny how they switched up. The what it was varsity. We called it varsity flyaways. We was playing at 3:30. By the time I was 8. So we get that middle, that late, that 5 o'clock game. Everybody, once I get off the field, everybody in the stand, it's swinging out. You know what I'm saying? It's over from there. Everybody outside. I don't know what side bets was going on. It wasn't every game. It was just specific games. Like crosstown rivalries. It wasn't every game, I don't think. And if it was, we knew what the stats was going to be around. Anyways, it wasn't never close. We had few. It's funny how I'll say it was perfect amount of teams for every city. You know what I'm saying? But it was still hectic because you had to see somebody you ain't like, and these people be right around the corner from you. It was a little bit better on the side of the town I was staying at. Where I was born, everybody was a little too close. The beef from football could turn into a beef from the neighborhoods real quick off a loss. So it was so. I always used to sit there because I used to think it was funny. Like I never was there when stuff happened. I was always gone before it happened. So thank God my mom had a sense not to have me out there. Like my oldest cousins, they was definitely at the late games. They was on the field. So it was kind of dope back then, just how it was. So we made it out. We all played. We had a good time playing. But yeah, saving college sports. They ended up. I remember because remember after I played, I started coaching right away, and I always used to be like, well, why they just don't make the why they making it a big deal? The colleges, they blamed the boosters so long, they had to figure out a way of, paying them to be in that NCAA game, paying them to bring in more 5 stars to the school. You know, these kids basically recruit when they on the team and help you bring the publicity to your team. So they was getting under, even if it was little money, say, somebody birthday and they got a party or something, everybody gift them up or whatever it was, how they was doing it back in the days for the college players, whatever it may be. I'm conspiracy, literally conspiracy. I was not around. Only thing I did was coach sports. So long story short, 2018 around COVID, it was talking about the NIL deal stuff going to be solidified. A lot of superstar Hall of Fame players in the NBA and in the NFL sons were going into college, going into high school, really. It probably was before that, but it became known that it was a big group of them Hall of Famers, still active, still super active in the media and on the court or field. So they all, man, this is unnecessary. We could pay our own kids out. They getting millions of dollars of allowance, and their teammates sitting there looking goofy because y'all want to put stimulations on what they can accept. It was dumb putting them involved, looking like they doing too much. Just recently, Teddy Bridgewater, he was, he came back home to Miami to do it. He coached as a head coach of his high school football team, and they ended up winning last year with him only being there 1 year. But it took, he ran that whole program like a professional, at minimum a high-ranking, high-level college football team. With the recovery things he did for them, the nutritional benefits he did for them, making sure they get from practice to home or practice to their teen center or group center. You know what I'm saying? Someone really taking care of them, making sure they get to home. So whatever he was doing, dropping them off in the right places, making sure they stay focused. They turned a very positive story into a very negative story. And, it didn't get ran but one time. Only seen it one day. But that's the type of stuff that, what he was on, that's definitely what I was on while I was coaching, high school, then I helped prep start, this is the stuff that's important because they don't tell you what they use the money for. They use a lot of our resources to be prepared for a war, but we're not warring in America. We're helping other people who have wars. Now, let's read the executive order that they written. Saving college sports. Purpose of the policy: college sports are uniquely American institutions that provide life-changing educational and leadership development opportunities to more than 500 student athletes through almost $4 billion in scholarships each year. That's a lot of money. $4 billion from college scholarships is a lot. That's a good amount of helping people change their lives and go to another level to basically help develop their, actually going to help develop their athleticism and their knowledge of just whatever they're studying at the time. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But let's continue. College athletics are providing substantial support to local economies and form part of family activities, pastimes, culture in many communities. While major college football games can draw tens of millions of television viewers and attendees, they feature only a very small sample of many athletes who benefit from the transformational opportunities that college athletics provide. 65% of 2024 United States Olympic team members were current or former National Collegiate Athlete Association (NCAA) varsity athletes, and approximately 75% were collegiate athletes. The 2024 United States Olympic teams earned 126 total medals, leading the overall medal count for the 8th consecutive Summer Olympic Games. Beyond driving our unrivaled success in international competition, college athletes are more likely to report better outcomes in important respects during college and after graduation. A substantial majority of female executives at the largest American companies participate in sports during adolescence, many at the high school and collegiate level. An example of business leaders and former presidents who played college sports are legion. It's no exaggeration to say that the American system collegiate athletics play an integral role in forging the leaders that drive our nation's success. Yet the future of college sports is under unprecedented threat. Waves of recent litigation against collegiate athletics governing rules have eliminated limits on athlete compensation, pay for play recruiting inducements, and transfers between universities, unleashing a sea of change that threatens the visibility of college sports. While changes provide some increased benefits and flexibility to student athletes, were overdue should be maintained inability to maintain reasonable rules and guardrails is a mortal threat to most college sports. Now, there's a lot going on, so this is very long. So I'm gonna pause. Now this is the issue. Now, before this is going on, they made the rules where you could transfer to any school you want, at any given time. It's just like high school rules. You don't have to wait a year to sit out. The transfer, they call it the transfer portal for athletes. I don't mind this way. What I'm saying? A lot of kids in high school were able to get a little bit off the top, you know, you know, by getting highly recruited as little league football players. They begin their journey in middle school, some players, and once they get in high school, they were able to get, somebody sent them a bag or two. That's how it was working. By ninth or 10th grade, if you went to a private school or you went to a high level public school where you're winning championships, it's like a feeder system for, these what they call elite college teams. Now, I'm just speaking on what was already been put out there. It's not a story that hasn't been ran about these types of situations. This is a very I'm not saying, dude, this is not specific to any high school I worked at or any high school I know about. I'm just talking about in general what circumstances have happened, what circumstances have been reported on ESPN, Yahoo Sports, whatever little sports station with popular that knows about public and national news. They put the football teams on their little league baseball. They know about these children. They rank them in high school. So I ain't saying nothing bad or wrong. So now that being said, they should not be worried about, how the NCAA might look. These people have stole billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars beforehand. They were giving these people pennies compared to what they were making per game. You go to sold out. Okay, I'm gonna use who has the one of the best, a Wisconsin game. You don't know how much money these people are making. $500 million. I'm sure it's closer to, for one game, it's close to at least $500 million at a school like that. And what they selling is on auto. They've been established so long. There's so many colleges like that. Oregon, who sponsored, who's the person who, he was the face of Nike. He was the owner of Nike. Not saying he didn't have people who invested in Nike during that time. I don't think it was that many people. He probably had a handful of people that was even in on the Nike, when they was trying to sign Jordan, Bo Jackson, and Deion Sanders at that in the early 80s. Jordan stayed with Nike and got his own brand. They boys got their own shoes. All that stuff was documented. And this guy didn't have that many people in his pocket. And, he basically sponsored his school that he went to. You go, I don't hear nothing bad about what's going on in Oregon when it comes to people getting paid, when it comes to them recruiting, the systems, everybody get basically probably the same amount. So it won't be it ain't a little bit amount. You're in college still, but everything is available to you. You have every resource available to you at that school. Your recovery is nothing that you do not, it's nothing you need to be your highest level athlete. They got athletes on all levels: track, football, basketball. It's that we name it. They haven't fell off in any kind of way over there. So they went with the new school. They changed their jerseys up. They got different color codes all throughout. They with the newest age. So that's a cause you can respect when it comes to handling the new age, the NIL deals. I don't see too much. Texas is a very huge school. So like I said, some of this stuff is still dark energy behind how football was formed. So that trickles into college too. That's the biggest thing, is being truthful about why you gotta pay these people. Some of these people don't even have the love of football once they figure out their second cousin got tortured, going to your school. They didn't pick your third cousin, decommitted and went to a different school, and they treat you weird because your cousin didn't want to come to the school or something. Any little thing that they can find to mentally manipulate or stop you from earning, these things go on still. So they need to correct those type of situations and stop worrying about talking about they're saving college. It's not that deep. Y'all ain't saving shit. Y'all worry about y'all bottom line getting lower. Y'all got to keep paying, and it ain't gonna stop. Y'all just gonna have to keep paying. Y'all are still in the billions, and crazy amount of money is. It's not even. They worried about. The real thing is with NCAA, the NCAA has no real reason to be here anymore. Once you begin paying college the amount that they're getting paid, $500 million minimum at this point, probably 250 at a smaller school over the time you're there. That's a good amount of money. Some people make, you'll basically, if you save properly, you'll basically have a year or two salary of a career job in America. 100K a year is pretty solid for a single person. That's just to live in the city that you pick. Now, I'm not gonna say too much. I ain't even gonna read the rest. I didn't watch no baseball. The two games were in the WNBA. I didn't go to no parent meeting. I'm really in a whole nother mode. I'm trying my best to get like on some, I'm getting the line properly, so the school board gonna see me. Now that I'm gonna be in, I'm in the community, my first official practice today for Little League that I'm gonna be coaching. It's today. I'm hyped about that, being on the football field. It's been like a long awaited full season. If you know about me, I take football very seriously. Like, it's very fun. It's like, I don't know. When if especially if I get to the playoffs, I'm crossing my fingers. I have a talented enough team to push for a championship, because I'll know by half a year after you play the top player team, and you see what you have out there to develop. Today's the first day, so we're gonna see how it goes. I wish that the league that I signed up to help coach, that they gave me a real honest chance to be the head coach of one of these teams, but they didn't put me on as head coach, so I'm a little mad. I want the person that I'm working with to like definitely give me at least one of the coordinator positions but Little League, it ain't even up to you unless the coach is just that bad. It's not really up to you. You have to listen to what the head coach say, and it is like that in high school. But you hired to have an input when you become a coordinator in high school. You're volunteering. They want to put their people in position here at this school they want to feed. I don't know if they know me as a coach, but you know, I remember the first year, the year I won my championship with my little league team. I talked about this already. I was coaching offense and defense. No matter what the head coach say, I was drawing up the plays. I was calling the plays in critical situations. I don't know, this is real life situation. Like, we trying to win. Once we blow them out, I don't care what you call. I'm definitely not giving you the ring to defense. You even don't even mention it. We try to stop. We stopping it. We stopping it. So after it wasn't my first year coaching. But following year, this is how white supremacy works. I get there. I'm like, you're not coaching. Why would I not be the head coach for this team? They wanted some other random person that I don't know. He talking about he played and coached at Canadian football. This ain't Canadian football. You can't do what you do over there in Canadian football. You're gonna be false starting. You trying to put your wide receiver going forward on doing a Canadian football play. So yeah, I that cracked me up to this day. When they wanted me, I might have got credit for a head coach. I might have didn't, but it was so weird that they wanted somebody that bad to be the head coach, and then me not to be head coach. And the same situation happened this year. I'm gonna be giving all the juice and sauce out to these people that are hating on me, and I'm like, dang, I hope it ain't this type of situation. But it seems like that's what it is. But I'm like, I'm not gonna take this personal. I've signed up. I didn't really want because when I first asked them, like, I really want to be head coach, and this is why I'm stepping into, full. I want to be full time, get back in the community, so and so. This is real shit. I ain't talking backwards. I ain't talking opposite. I ain't doing none of that. So I'm literally, they's like, okay, cool. I appreciate you. I put my, I was there when it was time to check off for your background check. I passed. Nothing came back negative. I already knew that. If I only could tell y'all how many times had to get tried for some petty for nothing, basically. So I got that. They didn't email me. They call me or nothing like that. I when the day I went for when they were weighing the children in, I was like, I'm gonna wait till you finish. And then it was like, I was a little agitated. I didn't want them to think I was hostile or nothing. So I just left instead of just talking to him. Because it was, look, when when you first get power or you passing out equipment, these the people that been waiting around to be able to say, I passed out the equipment and shoulder pad, I got everything under control. I already been a part of that. I already been the coach in the room. I never wanted that job. I was always like, I'm drawing something up. I'm trying to get my positions taught the best way and be the best at what they be. So I never wanted to be the equipment manager person. You know what I'm saying? This is me, and I ain't dissing equipment manager. That's very important. But that's so easy to me. That's like I'm on the side. You can ask my players how many times I don't help somebody fix their helmet in the middle of the game, fix their thing. But I ain't claiming that job. I'm not claiming that job. Fix their clip, making sure your shoulder pads good before games. I'm talking about every D line, O line. I'm checking everything. Like this is real life. Like this is the biggest the biggest group is the O line D line group. Everybody know, or the DBs, depending on what type of team you got. It's either them two, and I don't help both. So I'm looking at it like, y'all guys find something to do. Like, once I get on that move, I'm gonna be on the refs. I'm gonna coach my position. I'm gonna make sure everything's correct when it's time for me to coach up. This is the stuff that I'm prepared. These are my mental reps as a coach. Have my stuff ready. Have my stuff organized for my players. Don't have, got that stupid face in the middle of the games. I'm on point. I can go off the terminology, what we've been teaching them. Then I got to go off instinct of correction, correcting things, staying on point, alignment and assignment type of thing. So yeah, but yeah, I ain't gonna say too much. Last night, Dallas actually beat New York Liberty. That's 2 games. The Liberty have lost against a team below 500. The other day they lost against the Spark. They got they not as healthy as they was last year. That don't mean they're not dangerous. I'm glad to see these young teams win. Um, Seattle beat Connecticut as well last night. So yeah, no, yeah, they it's Washington lost the day before to Phoenix. That's those two young teams. I look at the Sparks. They on a nice little streak. They heat up long enough. They can sneak in the playoffs if they stay hot. And Dallas the same type of that's a nice win. Dallas got a very talented team. So yeah, but that's pretty much it for today. This is Dynasty the podcast show. I'm your host Ira Bush. I don't want to stay too long, so that's it for me today. Y'all stay tuned. Y'all keep tuning in, and we're gonna keep dropping show after show. So, yep, that's pretty much it. I'll see y'all later.